going to show you a short video of around 2.5 minutes of a conversation between a TV show host, Mr. Rogers, and a 10-year-old boy, Jeff. Listen to it the way you would normally listen to a conversation, and then we'll introduce you to a basic framework for structuring your listening so you can see the additional details you can pick up when you develop the skill of listening. Here's the clip.
Can you tell my friends what it is that made you need this wheelchair?
Sure. Well, when I was about 7 months old, I had a tumor, and it broke the nerves to tell my hands and legs what to do.
I see.
And they tried to cut the tumor, but they couldn't get it, and I became handicapped. And I got a wheelchair when I was 4 years old.
That was your first one when you were 4.
Uh-huh.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, sort of.
You must have some mighty good doctors who've been taking care of
Uh-huh.
you. Can you tell me any of your doctors' names?
Yeah, I have a pediatrician, Dr. Hansen, who works in Madison St. Mary's Hospital. And then at UW, I have the bone doctor is Dr. Breed, who takes care of the bones, I guess, because he's a
guess
bone
so.
doctor.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, I had surgery earlier this summer because I have pain in my stomach called autonomic dysreflexia, and I just
What was that word?
autonomic dysreflexia. I'm not exactly sure what it means.
But you sure can say it.
Yeah. Anyway, so I had a surgery done just recently to try and cut the sphincter because I'm holding my urine in. So, well, you have a lot of things going on when you're... This just shows you have a lot of things happen to you when you're handicapped most of the time.
But,
And sometimes it happens when you're not handicapped.
Of course. But you're able to talk about those things
Yeah.
so well and help other people
Mm-hmm.
who might have the same kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Let's break down the skill of listening into 4 fundamental elements: words, emotions, body language, intention. Let's look at words first. Now, when you listen to someone, you can pay attention to which words seem unusual or unique or stand out in a way and what it can tell you about them. For example, when Mr. Rogers asks Jeff to share, Jeff doesn't say, "I'll try" or "I'll do my best."
Can you tell my friends what it is that made you need this wheelchair?
Sure.
He says sure, and that seems to convey confidence. Maybe he was expecting the question, or maybe he's answered the question before. But when Mr. Rogers asks him whether he remembers his first wheelchair, Jeff says sort of, and seems much less certain. So as a listener, that would indicate that perhaps he doesn't remember that event as well.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, sort of.
Now have a listen to the words he uses when he's remembering one of the operations he had.
They tried to cut the tumor, but they couldn't get it, and I became handicapped.
He's saying couldn't, didn't, couldn't. He's switching between 2 different sentences. One is, they couldn't cut the tumor and I became handicapped. And the second is, they didn't cut the tumor and I became handicapped. It's only 1 word difference, but the sentences could be interpreted in very different ways. They didn't cut the tumor might imply that he feels they could have but didn't, and so it's the doctor's fault. They couldn't cut the tumor might imply that he feels they did the best. So the switch of words might imply that at an intellectual level he knows that they did their best, but at an emotional level he finds it hard not to wonder if they could have done a better job. It's also possible that it was just a slip of the tongue. So one thing to keep in mind when listening intently is to not make conclusions based on just 1 or 2 words, but to look for patterns. Now let's look at how we can listen to emotions. One of the emotions we can pick out in the video is amusement.
That was your first one when you were 4.
The bone doctor is Dr. Breed, who takes care of the bones, I guess, because he's a bone doctor. And I just...
What was that word?
Autonomic dysreflexia.
But when we develop our listening skills, we look at whether all the elements match: words, emotions, body language, and intention. Because sometimes when they don't all match, then it can indicate that there's something important that is not being said. For example, when Mr. Rogers first asks him about the chair, we see almost 4 emotions in just a couple of seconds. First, there's neutrality, then laughter, then confusion, and then pain and sadness.
I got a wheelchair when I was 4 years old.
That was your first one when you were 4. Do you remember that?
Yeah, sort of.
Why does that happen? It could be that when Mr. Rogers started smiling, Jeff responded automatically by smiling as well. But when he actually thought about it, he realized that he didn't remember the actual moment he got the chair. Or that his memories of getting a wheelchair were actually tinged with sadness rather than joy, because he realized that he was going to spend the rest of his life in it. Of course, we can't be sure of any of this. Listening can only help us make a hypothesis. If you really want to know what someone is thinking, then the best way is to build a relationship where they trust us and then ask them what they're thinking. Now let's look at the third element, body language. One pattern we might notice is that there are times when Jeff breaks eye contact and looks down. And it seems to be those moments when he's feeling sad.
I became handicapped. Yeah, sort of. Anyway, so I had surgery done just recently to try and cut the sphincter because of holding my urine in.
And what we might assume from this is he's someone who doesn't want people to see sadness in his eyes. He might feel that he will get sympathy or pity, and he doesn't want anyone to feel sorry for him. Now, if we start putting these 3 elements together, we can also start hearing the 4th element, intention. Why he's saying what he's saying, and why he's not saying what he's not saying. So for example, we can notice another pattern, that he doesn't like to get too sad, but he also doesn't like to get too happy. Maybe he's afraid that if he gets too happy, then it might get snatched away, leaving him devastated. So he tries to keep himself grounded and practical. Notice the pattern how every time he senses a strong emotion of sadness or happiness, he wants to become neutral and move on by saying the word anyway.
The bone doctor is Dr. Breed, who takes care of the bones, I guess, because he's a bone doctor. Anyway, autonomic dysreflexia. I'm not exactly sure what it means.
But you sure can say it.
Yeah. Anyway, so I had surgery done.
And when Mr. Rogers tries to praise him for being really smart for his age, Jeff tries to bring himself back to the ground by saying he doesn't know what the word autonomic dysreflexia means. And then Mr. Rogers gently tries to put the compliment in front of him again by saying, but you sure can say it. And again, Jeff doesn't really take the compliment. He wants to move on. Maybe he feels that accepting praise is sort of like accepting sympathy. And of course, we can't know for sure. But we can start noticing a lot more when we listen. And when we do, it gives us power to direct the conversation a lot more skillfully. So let's look at the master listener, Mr. Rogers, and how he directs the conversation when Jeff is first sharing his story. Mr. Rogers just says, I see, or just nods. He doesn't say, who are you, or tries to cheer him up. He just listens empathetically and non-judgmentally.
I broke the nerves to tell my hands and legs what to do.
I see.
I became handicapped.
If he sympathized and said, who are you, then Jeff might close up because he might feel that Mr. Rogers pities him. If Mr. Rogers says, it's not so bad, cheer up, then Jeff might feel that Mr. Rogers doesn't understand what he's been through. So Mr. Rogers just listens and creates that connect. He notices Jeff struggling with his sadness at times and later does try to cheer him up, but very subtly.
And I got a wheelchair when I was 4 years old.
That was your first one when you were 4.
Uh-huh.
You must have some mighty good doctors who've been taking care of you.
Because I have pain in my stomach called autonomic dysreflexia. And I just...
What was that word?
Autonomic dysreflexia.
Of course. But you're able to talk about those things
Yeah.
so well and help other people who might have the same kinds of things.
When you develop your skill of listening, you can hear things in conversations that others can't. It's like a superpower. It's like X-ray vision. It allows you to build, connect, trust, to influence and inspire people and sense what's important to them, to build win-win solutions. It helps you understand humans and yourself better. Now, notice what's going on for people who you feel really comfortable with. So comfortable that you don't really listen to them intently, like your parents, or your spouse, or your children. Deep listening is a skill that you can build on just like you can build muscles by going to the gym. One exercise you can do to develop your listening ability is to just listen for 5 minutes consciously every day. It could be any conversation, at work, at home, even in a movie. So on Monday, listen for 5 minutes to just the words. On Tuesday, listen to just emotions for 5 minutes. On Wednesday, listen for 5 minutes, again, just body language. On Thursday, try to put it all together and pick out the intention during 5 minutes of a conversation. And if you practice this for a while, slowly you will start noticing things in your conversations that you never noticed before. It's a superpower. Have fun!